Hello, welcome to Thor Talk, the show all about Marvel's resident god of thunder. Thor is dead, killed by his brother. Memory of him fades, and his soul journeys to the third heaven. There he must seek knowledge from those who sit above, face the one who sits in his shadow below, and make a sacrifice greater than even Odin's. Thor is dead, but now comes his rebirth on Thor Talk.
I am Thor the Thunderer, son of Odin, prince of Asgard, and this world is under my protection.
The Immortal Thor number 25 was written by Yao Ewing and was published in July of 2025. The issue begins with a line from the Eddic poem Havamal. Knowest thou how to pray? Knowest thou how to offer? Havamal is a collection of wise sayings attributed to the god Odin. This quote is part of a section known as Runetal. In this section, Odin describes how he acquired the runes by sacrificing himself to himself. The quote is part of a larger stanza where Odin describes different aspects of magic involving runes that one should know. You should know how to pray to the gods in rune magic, and you should know how to offer sacrifices for their help. This quote relates to the issue in a few ways. Firstly, Thor must know how to pray in order to receive guidance from the rulers of Vidblain. Thor is left alone in that realm, but it is only when he literally gets on his knees and asks for answers that the three appear and guide him. Secondly, Thor must know how to offer. He must offer a sacrifice of himself to himself. Thor faced his final trial. He stood against the elder gods, and he stood alone, and he stood victorious. And now he lay dead, murdered, sacrificed. Loki's blood-stained hands hold the shard of eternity he used to kill his brother, and he tells Thor how sorry he is. The gods gape in horror and shock. Sif swears vengeance. Utgard-Loki eyes the young trickster with suspicion.
I am curious myself, little Loki. What trick are you playing here? Are you a piece in Gaia's game, or is she part of yours?
Oh, Loki replies. Would you know more, old trickster? More will be told. And Loki was gone. Utgard-Loki, from his introduction, has been an incredibly powerful and mysterious force, but this is the first time we've really seen his limits. Utgard-Loki planned to test Thor by sending the other elder gods after him, but he was completely ignorant of Loki's plan and his true goal. It also seems like he's not entirely sure the specifics of Gaia's game plan either. It's a little surprising to see Utgard-Loki not in control. This does line up with the New Testament parallels that Ewing has been repeatedly using. Utgard-Loki is Satan, who attempts to bring about the death of Thor, not realizing that this sacrificial death is exactly what his enemy wants. Utgard-Loki pondered the game as it lay before him. Thor had won his trial, yet, for all that, the son of Asgard and Midgard was dead. And the way to both those realms was now open. And all that lay in the Elder God's way was Scourge. He had desired to die for Thor, but now, following his king's last orders, he would die for his legacy. So he raised the blood axe high, and Lady Sif, guardian of the Rainbow Bridge, saw what he would do. Too late. With one blow of that axe that wise Uller honed with Scourge's very soul, the Black Bridge shattered like glass, and with a final laugh, Scourge fell and was lost. Unfortunately for Scourge, after finally learning he doesn't have to sacrifice himself, he ends up sacrificing himself. He does end up saving everyone, but I think the main point of this scene is that with Thor dead, all hope is truly lost. Yes, everyone is safe, but Scourge had finally gained hope that he could be more than someone who sacrifices himself for everyone else. Now, with Thor dead, that hope is gone, and he's forced to do it once again. However, I hardly think he's dead this time, and we'll see him again soon. More was lost with Scourge. The Black Bridge and the Rainbow Bridge were opposites, yet two sides of a single coin. That was Loki's secret. To conjure the Rainbow Bridge was to conjure its dark counterpart alongside it. So now that glittering bridge of hope and joy died a second death greater than the first. The price of a new beginning was always the ending.
Well played, Asgard. Well played.
Utgard-Loki faded into the dark wood with Thor's dead body beside him. The god of two worlds was gone, and all links between Asgard and Midgard were sundered. Even in history, even in memory, Thor is forgotten. His place as a founding member of the Avengers is taken by Beta Ray Bill. Sif watches as the gods of Asgard fade into myth on Midgard, a wave of forgetting and rewriting stories as if the gods were never there. They can still travel to other realms with some difficulty, but Midgard is lost. We finally learn how Loki managed to restore the Rainbow Bridge in the first issue. This explains why the Utgard gods arrived soon after Loki restored the Bifrost, but we also know that Gaia unlocked the gate around this time as well. It is possible that Utgard-Loki was right that Loki was working with Gaia, or that Loki took advantage of Gaia's decision to open the gate. In either case, Loki seems to have not just linked Asgard and Midgard with this new Rainbow Bridge, but also Midgard's belief in Asgard. We've seen that gods are particularly susceptible to story magic, and that is Loki's specialty. Fandral hopes that they can find a way to return to Midgard, but there would be little hope for Asgard, or any realm, in the time to come. How could there be? Thor was dead. And so Thor entered into death. He now realizes that Loki told the truth when he promised to kill him. He finds himself not in Valhalla with his father, not in Andalong with his great-grandfather, or even in Hell with Hela, who always swore to claim his soul. For the third time, he finds himself in the third heaven, Vidblain, land of lost souls. Before, the demons of Vidblain attacked him to keep him from returning, but now they leave Thor alone, for they know he can never return. He is without Mjolnir. Weak and formless rain falls on him. The storm will not come to this place. He is truly gone, and truly alone. He screams into the void. So where voyage you now, Thor, Odin's son? Are you remembered by those you once aided? Does the good you died for mean anything at all? For what purpose was your death? For what purpose was your life? Tell me, emptiness! Tell me, death! Now that it is too late, now that it is all over, the All-Father would know! Nay, the All-Father is dead, and pomp and pride died with him. I would know.
Would you know more? Har am I who sits on the high throne and speaks high truths. And you are Thor who bows at last to what must be. Yavin am I sit on the higher throne and speak higher truths yet. And you are Thor whose thread is cut, whose final end faced. Thridi am I sit on the highest throne and speak the highest truths of all. And you are Thor who seeks answers as his father did before him in the long ago. If you would know more, more will be told.
Thor asks about his father. The brothers who sit above on their thrones answer that Odin must remain in Valhalla, that he is greater than a king, and that a seeker of knowledge will always seek more. Thor asks about his son, Magni. They answer that he has two paths, one long and one tragic short. He should beware of ambition in two forms, and a throne comes with a grave. Thor finally asks about his own fate. They tell him he will walk the path of sacrifice as Odin did, that he must sacrifice himself to himself as Odin did, and he must walk where Odin could not walk before, on a path not taken.
And you will not walk it alone. Who sits in thy shadow, Thor?
Donald Blake stands behind Thor. I was delighted to see these important yet obscure characters from Norse mythology appear. In Gylfaginning of Snorri's Edda, the king Gylfi goes to the land of Asgard to learn about them. There he finds three kings on three thrones, named Har, high, Yavanhar, just as high, Thridi, third. These three tell Gylfi stories of the gods and eventually disappear along with the whole castle, leaving a very confused Gylfi. These three are typically believed to be aspects of Odin split into three, but their main function is to protect the author. Snorri wanted to teach about the Old Norse myths for scholarly and poetic reasons, but he was writing after the Christianization. He had to make extra certain that he couldn't be accused of trying to convert people back to paganism. Therefore, rather than tell the myths himself, he puts the myths in the mouths of these three shady figures. It has been suggested that the way their thrones contradict with their names would prove to the audience that they are not to be trusted. High is on the lowest throne, just as high is higher than high, and third, rather than being the third high, is the highest of them all. Regardless of whether or not Snorri intended it this way, this makes them appear to be mysterious figures who hold vast amounts of knowledge, which is reflected in this issue. Thor, like Gylfi, comes to them asking questions and seeking knowledge, which they willingly provide. Interestingly, they resemble those who sit above in shadow quite a bit, and some of the dialogue seems to hint at that. They refer to Donald Blake as the one who sits in Thor's shadow, which seems unlikely to be a coincidence. The helmets they wear are also remarkably similar to the ones worn by the three members of that group. Still, even if they are related to the high gods who fed on Ragnarok, they seem to be a separate group. They are aware of Thor's path, which will apparently end all cycles, and they seem to be guiding him on it, which would be the exact opposite thing that those who sit above in shadow would want. They also only appeared to Thor when he stopped trying to defy fate, and instead sought to understand it. Whatever they are, they don't seem to have any ill intentions, but the same can't be said of the one who sits in Thor's shadow. Donald Blake's soul can find Thor anywhere in this realm, and now he faces his hated brother with serpent's venom dripping from his eyes. After his many crimes, Blake was given Loki's old role as god of lies, and forced to face the punishment that Loki once did. Thor apologizes for his role in Blake's suffering, but Donald Blake does not want Thor's pity. He demands a reckoning. A red hammer emerges from Blake's palm, and with it he strikes Thor. It is Helnir, the Devil's Hammer, forged from hate to be a dark reflection of Mjolnir, with its own dark lightning. This storm is not Thor's friend. The lightning is like poison in his veins. Blake cannot accept Thor's apology, because he has no idea what he's apologizing for. A god can have no concept of suffering, no concept of humility. It is arrogance to think he can understand humanity by taking breaks from godhood to be human. He cannot truly know what it is like to live with the knowledge that you can suddenly die as humans do. In pain, in love, in the middle of things. Blake would teach Thor the truth through sacrifice. With his poisoned lightning, he gouges Thor's eyes out as the lesson begins. Helnir came from a symbiote-bonded demon who appeared in Thor number 27 and 28, which Al Ewing co-wrote with Donny Cates. Donald Blake getting his hands on it made it stronger, and now he's turning it on Thor, despite his apologies. Donald Blake was someone who knew what it was like to be a god, and then was stripped down to being human. Forced to live with the knowledge that his life may suddenly end while having known what it's like to be immortal. Having known this, he believes that Odin's plan to teach Thor humility by temporarily putting him in a human body was flawed. If Thor truly was mortal, then maybe he would have sacrificed something, and learned what it was to be human. But otherwise, Blake is unimpressed. Now, Blake is totally in the wrong here. Thor has certainly suffered, and being a god can come with its own drawbacks as well. But you can see how he would hate Thor for getting the opposite end of their deal. While Blake's soul is here, he hints that his body is free from imprisonment, and he will tell Thor where as he journeys into oblivion. No, Blake, there is no wisdom on this road, for it is a road already taken. Thor has already sacrificed his eyes for wisdom when he hurled them into Mimir's well and learned the runes. Now Blake says that Thor must learn something more vast and strange than the runes, something more terrible than death, and so he shall. Thor pierces his hand on Helnir and begins to pry it from his shadow. If Thor is too immortal for Blake, and Blake has decided to embrace being the god of lies, then they are both gods. So between the two of them, there is a human soul that goes spare. A human life. Let there be a new sacrifice then. A sacrifice of all power and pride. Of myself to myself. A sacrifice beyond mere death. Let the winter of the gods come,
and let it come now!
Donald Blake is pushed back, and now he notices that something is very wrong. His soul is missing. The great serpent who wore the name of Donald Blake but could never be that again, screamed then to the ends of Vidblain. Yet, there was no god left to answer him. Thor was gone. For a while at least. A voice calls him from the void. A young child named Lucky hands him his wallet and keys back. The boy wonders if he is anyone interesting or special. My name is Sigurd Yarlson. And I am just a man. Sigurd Yarlson, Thor's secret identity from the Walter Simonson run, is back, but he's just a man. The nature of Thor's death means that he cannot be resurrected. His soul is permanently tied to Vidblain, but there is a way out. By sacrificing all his power and pride as a god, and instead choosing to be reborn as a human. Normally, this wouldn't be possible, but Donald Blake possesses a human soul created by Odin specifically to act as Thor's soul. Blake has made it very clear he would rather be a god than a human, so Thor decides to make use of his unwanted humanity. He sacrifices his very nature as a god to be reborn as a man, the mortal Thor. Some bits of information have been released about this new series, which indicate that Thor has lost all his memories, but after he regains them, he will go about restoring the magic of the gods to Earth. It also looks like he'll have a few encounters with Roxxon. This issue was not what I expected. What was being set up as a send-off is actually just a transition to the next arc. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but the issue seems to have more story setup than payoff and substance. That is what it is, I suppose. Speaking of the next arc, we will finally have a new artist, Pascal Ferry, who worked on Thor during Matt Fraction's run. He's definitely a step up, and I think he's a good choice overall. Jen Bazaldula is not bad, but she's not great either. I definitely prefer her over Justin Greenwood, who did the Vidblain sections in this issue. There are many books his art would be a good choice for. Thor isn't one of them. For such a monumental moment in the story, they should have brought in a classic Thor artist for the section. Olivier Coipel comes to mind, who invented the look of Vidblain to begin with. Oh well, again, Ferry is a step up from what we've been getting, so the Mortal Thor will be something to look forward to. Well, that's all for this episode of Thor Talk. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you like the new logo. All this time, I've been using this Thor poster that I thought was cool, but now this is an original image that's my logo, so I can legally make t-shirts. So that's cool, I guess. Yeah, I've been working on some other videos. I'm working on a really involved one right now. It might be kind of niche, so we'll see how that goes, but I definitely want to get it done, so hopefully you all like it. Anyway, with that being said, see you next time on Thor Talk, where...
You'll behold in breathless wonder.